Suddenly, more and more Americans began suffering from chronic diseases, from obesity, cancer, diabetes, kidney disease, Alzheimer's, heart disease, and all kinds of autoimmune diseases.
How many of us sit down to a meal believing we are safe, never questioning what's really inside the food we trust the most? Yet reports show that Americans unknowingly consume ingredients banned in other countries, additives linked to cancer, and processed meats classified in the same cancer risk category as cigarettes. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been sounding the alarm, warning that the very foods filling American grocery carts are slowly poisoning us while corporations cash in. If bread can legally contain chemicals used in yoga mats, and ketchup can quietly push your heart toward failure, what else is hiding in plain sight? How much of what we call food is really a slow poison disguised as comfort? The truth will shock you, and you need to hear it before your next meal. Today, we will reveal the most harmful foods Americans keep eating. This is the Downturn Report, where the truth gets personal. Let's begin. Number 1. Bread. That warm slice on your plate smells like comfort and promises to fill your belly. Might just be the biggest backstabber in your kitchen. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. warns that this so-called simple food has been quietly turned into a cocktail of chemicals, and we are the ones paying the price, bite after bite. How many of us still picture bread as the honest, old-fashioned mix of flour, water, yeast, and salt? That memory is as outdated as a black and white TV. What sits on grocery shelves today is no longer bread in the true sense. It is an industrial creation, dressed up in a golden crust, hiding secrets you would never expect to find in something as ordinary as a sandwich. And here is where your stomach might twist one of the most common dough conditioners. L-cysteine is frequently sourced from human hair collected from barbershops and salons, often from overseas where regulations are loose. You are unknowingly chewing on something that once lay on the floor of a hair salon. Does that sound like breakfast or a dare gone wrong? But the betrayal goes deeper. Calcium propionate, used to keep bread from molding, has been linked to digestive discomfort and even behavioral changes in children. Imagine your grandchild throwing tantrums, and you never suspect the toast could be part of the problem. Then comes azotocarbonamide, a chemical so controversial that some countries banned it entirely. Americans, however, are still told it is safe, even though it is also used to manufacture yoga mats and sneaker soles. Heat that chemical in the oven, and it breaks down into compounds tied to respiratory problems and cancer risk. It is almost like these bread companies looked at a hardware store and thought, let's borrow a few ingredients from there, even without the chemicals. The nutritional mess is staggering. The refined flour used in most commercial bread has been stripped of natural fiber and essential nutrients, leaving you with little more than empty calories. High fructose corn syrup sneaks into many loaves, including those with labels screaming whole grain or multigrain, pushing blood sugar up like a carnival ride you did not ask to get on. Over time, it feeds obesity, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease. And yet, we keep trusting it because bread feels safe, as if something that looks so plain and cheap could not possibly hurt us. That is the cruelest trick. Bread wears the mask of an old friend while quietly acting more like a con artist, smiling as it robs you of your health. So step away from the supermarket shelves stacked high with this chemical-laden imposter and look for bakers who still care about making bread the way it used to be: honest, natural, and free of things that sound like they belong in a science lab. Better yet, rolling up your sleeves and baking it at home might be the only way to be sure your toast is just toast and not a chemistry experiment mixed with hair salon sweepings. And if bread, the most basic food we trust, can hide this much filth, what do you think is lurking in the other foods you eat every day? You might want to brace yourself, because the next one on this list is even worse. Number 2, tomato ketchup. That bright red bottle sitting quietly in the fridge, waiting to dress up fries or burgers, might look like the most harmless thing on the table. But open your eyes for a second. What if that cheerful, tangy sauce is just a sly salesman selling you trouble with every squeeze? The sweetness that keeps you reaching for more is not just a pleasant taste, it is a calculated trap. A couple of tablespoons can hold more sugar than a cookie, yet people pour it over their food as if it were water. Day after day, that sugar sneaks into your bloodstream, padding your waistline and quietly planting seeds for obesity. Ever wonder why it feels so addictive? Like you almost need it with every meal that is no accident. It is built to keep you hooked. And then comes high fructose corn syrup, the real wolf in sheep's clothing. It does not just make ketchup sweeter, it plays dirty with your body's health, pushing triglyceride levels higher and forcing your heart to work harder, like making an old engine climb a hill in the wrong gear. One bottle of ketchup might look innocent, but each squeeze is another notch on the long road to heart disease. Think about it as that little burst of tang worth giving your heart such a heavy burden. But the betrayals keep piling up. Ketchup is loaded with sodium, and too much of it is like throwing sand into the gears of your body, over time. Excessive sodium causes inflammation, joint aches, and even calcium deposits that harden into kidney stones, painful little reminders of every meal you drowned in ketchup, for anyone already dealing with stomach issues. It gets nastier. The citric and malic acids inside are a recipe for heartburn, acid reflux, and hours of discomfort. Your favorite condiment, the one you trust to make food better, might actually be turning your stomach into a battleground. And let us not forget the artificial preservatives keeping it shelf-stable for months. They work wonders for store owners. But not for you. These chemicals stress your body, disrupt insulin levels, and quietly increase the risk of diabetes. Your system is forced to work overtime to control all that sugar and chemical load, slowly wearing it down. Maybe it is time to stop letting ketchup act like the life of the party when it is really the guest sneaking silverware into its pocket. Homemade versions made with real tomatoes, a little salt, and natural spices are safer and tastier, and some local brands still care enough to skip the syrup and preservatives. But here's the hard truth: if something as basic as ketchup can betray you this badly, what else is sitting in your kitchen, smiling sweetly while tearing your health apart? The next item might just make you push your plate away. Number 3. Hot dogs. That cheerful hot dog sitting in a bun, dressed with mustard and relish, may seem like the easiest, most harmless snack in the world, but peel back the casing, and what you will find inside is closer to a horror story than a picnic treat. The truth begins with something the industry calls meat emulsion. Sounds fancy, right? But it is nothing more than various cuts of pork, beef, or poultry ground down into a thick paste, mixed with fat, spices, and chemical preservatives before being squeezed into tubes. The real question is not how it is made, it is what it is made from. Many hot dogs, especially the cheap ones stacked in bright plastic packs, are a dumping ground for animal scraps. No one talks about gristle, skin, and tough connective tissues. Some factories take it a step further with mechanical separation, scraping every last bit of meat off bones, sweeping up blood vessels, cartilage, and whatever clings to the carcass. By the time it is blended with artificial flavors and curing agents, you are no longer eating real meat, you are eating something sculpted to look like meat. But the disguise does not stop at texture. Sodium nitrates and nitrites are used to keep that rosy color and extend shelf life, making hot dogs look fresh long after they should. Yet multiple studies have linked these additives to digestive cancers, placing hot dogs in the same cancer risk category as cigarettes. Think about that for a second. Every bite could be just as dangerous as lighting up. And if that is not enough, hot dogs are loaded with saturated fat and sodium, a combination that pushes blood pressure higher, strains the heart, and fuels obesity. That summer barbecue staple you grew up trusting might be quietly helping you march toward heart disease with every bite. And here comes the part no one wants to talk about: hygiene. Independent testing has found traces of human DNA in some hot dogs, sparking serious questions about what really goes on inside those production plants. Even vegetarian hot dogs have tested positive for contamination, proving that cleanliness problems are not limited to meat-based products. Imagine biting into something and wondering if the factory workers accidentally became part of your lunch. That is not just disgusting, it is terrifying. So think twice before tossing another pack into your grocery cart, if you crave that smoky flavor. Some local butchers still craft sausages using whole cuts of real meat and natural spices, without the chemical cocktail or mystery scraps. Better yet, grilling a fresh piece of chicken or pork yourself gives you control over what goes into your body. Because when a hot dog, something as simple as a ballpark snack, hides this many secrets, What do you think is waiting for you in the next food on this list? Number 4. Shrimps. Shrimp may sparkle like little jewels in your dinner plate, but behind that delicate pink sheen is a story far darker than most people are ready to hear. The truth is, many of those tiny crustaceans are grown in overcrowded ponds where disease runs rampant, and the quick fix is to drown them in antibiotics. Some of these drugs are so dangerous they have been banned in other countries, yet they still find their way into the shrimp shipped to American tables. Each bite can carry residues that slowly chip away at the effectiveness of antibiotics when you actually need them for medical treatment. It is unsettling to think that a harmless-looking shrimp cocktail could one day make your prescribed antibiotics weaker, leaving you vulnerable when illness strikes. And it does not stop with the drugs. Sodium triphosphate, a chemical used to keep shrimp plump and moist, gives them that firm, fresh feel. But at what cost? Allergic reactions, digestive discomfort, and chemical buildup are the hidden price tags of that so-called perfect texture. What feels tender on your fork could be stirring up quiet chaos in your body. The damage stretches far beyond your plate. Coastal ecosystems in Southeast Asia and Central America are being torn apart to fuel the global hunger for cheap shrimp. Mangrove forests, nature's guardians against climate change, are ripped out to make space for shrimp farms. These forests store massive amounts of carbon, protect shorelines from erosion, and provide shelter for countless marine species. But once they are bulldozed, the stored carbon escapes into the air, speeding up climate change, while fragile coastal communities are left at the mercy of floods and violent storms. The waste from these farms, filled with chemicals and uneaten feed, creates dead zones in surrounding waters, choking marine life under thick algae blooms. And before you think wild-caught shrimp is better, think again. Shrimp trawling, the most common way of harvesting them, drags heavy nets across the ocean floor, shredding coral reefs and scooping up everything in its path. Sea turtles, small fish, and countless other creatures become collateral damage in this destructive process, their lives lost for the sake of a plate of seafood. But perhaps the most gut-wrenching truth has nothing to do with oceans at all. It is about the people. In regions where labor laws are weak, shrimp farming has been linked to human trafficking and forced labor. Workers, sometimes even children, endure exhausting hours, dangerous conditions, and little or no pay. Also, these shrimp can reach your grocery store looking picture perfect. So next time you dip that shrimp into cocktail sauce, ask yourself, is a moment of flavor worth swallowing a chain of suffering that stretches from the mangroves to the ocean floor and even to the hands that harvested it? Maybe it is time to look for shrimp sourced from certified sustainable fisheries, or better yet, skip it altogether, because sometimes the real cost of a cheap shrimp dinner is far too high for any of us to stomach. Number 5. Canned mushrooms. Pop open a can of mushrooms, and what do you expect? Soft, earthy slices ready to toss into a pan. What you probably do not expect is that you might be sharing your meal with a hidden crowd of wriggling intruders. Yet that is exactly what sits inside many of those shiny cans lining grocery store shelves. The truth is not just unappetizing, it is downright stomach-turning. Food regulations quietly allow something most people would throw away in disgust, maggots, and mites. All perfectly legal. Why? Because the industry decided cleaning them out completely would cost too much time and money, so you get what they call extra protein, whether you want it or not. And this extra protein is not just a stray bug or two. The FDA allows up to 20 maggots in every 600 grams of canned mushrooms, some growing over 2 millimeters long. Imagine scooping a spoonful into your pasta, not realizing that what looks like a soft mushroom slice might have something rubbery mixed in. Then there are the mites, tiny spider-like creatures crawling invisibly through the can. 75 mites are permitted in every 100 grams, which means by the time you peel back that metal lid, there could be an entire microscopic neighborhood waiting inside. Sure, they are considered harmless in small amounts. But since when did acceptable for consumption mean pleasant to eat? The real concern goes beyond the gag reflex. Maggots can carry bacteria if they have touched rotting material before ending up in the mushrooms. Cooking might kill some of it, but it does not magically erase everything. Once they are blended in, you will never know which bite carries a little more than mushrooms. That creamy mushroom soup or stir fry might suddenly feel a lot less comforting once you think about what else is swimming in it. Yes, fresh mushrooms take more effort to clean and slice, but at least you can see exactly what you are eating. With canned mushrooms, you give up control entirely. trusting a system that openly admits to letting insects slide into your food. Convenience might save you a few minutes, but is it worth spooning invisible bugs onto your dinner plate? And if this makes you feel uneasy, it should. Because if canned mushrooms are the simplest, most innocent-looking pantry staple can legally hide an entire tiny ecosystem. What about the other packaged foods sitting in your kitchen? Maybe it is time to wonder what else is crawling its way onto your plate, smiling at you through those bright, innocent-looking labels. Number 6. Seafood. Seafood sounds like the picture of health, a fresh, clean gift from the ocean that is supposed to be good for the heart and body. But peel back that shiny image, and what you find is a brutal and filthy journey that would make anyone think twice before taking another bite. The story starts long before your dinner plate. Industrial fishing is not a man with a rod on a quiet pier. It is a floating factory armed with massive nets that sweep through the ocean like bulldozers tearing through a forest. These nets do not politely pick and choose. They scoop up everything in their path. Sharks, dolphins, sea turtles, and even endangered species are dragged in, crushed or suffocated, only to be tossed back into the water dead or dying. This so-called bycatch is not just collateral damage, it is the slow unraveling of entire marine ecosystems, the kind of damage that cannot simply be undone by throwing a few hatchlings back into the sea, and if you think the nightmare ends once the nets are pulled up. It gets uglier. Fish are dumped onto dirty decks, flopping helplessly in their own blood and slime. Many are gutted while still alive, sliced open without hesitation, their suffering treated as nothing more than part of the routine. Others are packed into ice that has been reused so many times it reeks of decay, or worse. Left under the sun for hours until their flesh starts to break down. The pristine seafood platter you imagine comes from scenes closer to a slaughterhouse than a sparkling blue ocean. Once these fish are hauled to processing plants, the situation hardly improves. Some facilities are notorious for hygiene problems, contaminated surfaces, improper storage, and careless handling that allow bacteria to thrive. By the time seafood reaches your plate, it might look fresh, but you would never guess it has spent hours or even days swimming in pools of melted ice mixed with blood and waste. And let us not forget what this does to the workers. Many labor in harsh, unsanitary conditions, racing to keep up with demand in factories that treat seafood like cheap merchandise rather than food meant for human bodies. Would you still call it healthy if you watched where it had been the next time you see a neatly filleted piece of fish on sale? Remember what it took to get there: ocean floors torn apart, innocent creatures dying as accidents, and your dinner possibly steeped in more bacteria than anyone wants to admit. Maybe it is time to think beyond the pretty picture on the packaging. Fresh, locally sourced seafood from trusted fishers, or skipping it altogether, might be the only way to be sure what you are eating is actually food, not just the aftermath of a machine tearing through the ocean. Number 7. Burgers. That sizzling burger, glistening under the lights of a fast food counter, looks like comfort food in its purest form. A juicy patty, a soft bun, maybe a slice of cheese melting perfectly. What could be so bad about something so familiar? But behind that inviting smell is a story most people would rather not know. A single fast food burger can carry over 1,000 calories, enough to tip your daily limit before you even add fries or a soda. Each bite quietly builds up weight gain, feeding a cycle that leads straight to obesity and all the health problems tied to it. And then there is the fat, the kind that clings to arteries like grease in an old kitchen drain. Fast food patties are packed with unhealthy fats that push cholesterol levels higher, slowly blocking blood flow until the heart struggles against the pressure. The salt does not help either. The sodium content in one burger is enough to strain blood vessels, driving up blood pressure and forcing the heart to work harder with every meal. It is not just a one-time indulgence, the damage adds up, stacking quietly until one day it is too late to ignore. But the real betrayal hides in how that meat is sourced. Each patty is often a mix of meat from multiple animals, sometimes even from different countries. It is a perfect recipe for contamination, which is why beef recalls due to E. coli outbreaks are far too common. The meat you bite into may have traveled farther than you ever will in your lifetime, picked from different facilities, processed in bulk, and pressed into a uniform patty. And then comes the part that makes many people lose their appetite altogether: pink slime. Many fast food chains still use ammonia-treated beef scraps processed into a paste, treated with chemicals to kill bacteria, then mixed into patties to stretch production. Imagine biting into something sold as real beef when parts of it were once so low grade they had to be chemically treated just to be considered edible. Add to that the artificial preservatives and flavor enhancers mixed in to keep it tasting fresh, and you have a meal that is as much a science project as it is food. So the next time you unwrap that burger and breathe in the warm, savory smell, ask yourself, are you smelling food? Or are you just catching the scent of clever marketing hiding a chemical cocktail? Maybe it is worth skipping the glowing fast food signs altogether. A burger made at home, from fresh ground beef and simple ingredients. Might take more time, but at least you know what is going into it. Because if even something as familiar as a burger can hold this many secrets, maybe it is time to wonder what other comfort foods are quietly working against you every single day. Number 8. Kopi Luwak coffee. It is sold as a luxury, whispered about in hushed tones at high-end cafes, and flaunted as the most exclusive coffee in the world. But what if every sip of this pricey brew carried the taste of cruelty and deception rather than sophistication? Kopi Luwak, or civet coffee. May sound exotic, but its story begins in a place most people would rather not picture while drinking their morning cup inside the digestive system of a civet. These small wild animals eat coffee cherries, pass the beans through their digestive tract, and after being collected from their waste, the beans are cleaned and roasted. The pitch sounds glamorous, smoother, less acidic coffee, but once you know what truly happens behind the scenes, that smoothness leaves a bitter taste. In the wild, civets are free-ranging animals that choose only the ripest cherries, and that natural selection is what supposedly makes the coffee special. But to meet the demand created by wealthy consumers, many civets are now trapped in filthy, cramped cages on commercial farms, forced to eat nothing but coffee cherries. Imagine being fed only one food you never chose day after day, until your body gives up. Malnutrition, severe digestive issues, fur loss, and weakened immune systems are common, and many animals die in these miserable conditions. Civets are nocturnal and solitary by nature, yet they are crammed into overcrowded cages, kept awake during the day to amuse curious tourists who pay to see the coffee-making animals. That rare, luxurious cup on your table is paid for in animal suffering, not just dollars, and if you think at least you're paying for something authentic. Here's the final insult most Kopi Luwak sold is fake. Studies suggest that more than 80% of what is on the market has nothing to do with civets at all. Ordinary beans are roasted, packaged, and sold at absurdly high prices under the Kopi Luwak name. Even when the beans do come from civets, farmed ones produce lower quality coffee because they are force-fed, not naturally selecting the best cherries. What is being sold as the world's finest coffee often has neither quality nor ethics to back up the price tag. So the next time someone brags about sipping the rarest coffee on earth, ask yourself, what are they really drinking? A true delicacy should never come from animal suffering, and it certainly should not come from a scam dressed up as luxury. With so many ethically sourced, high-quality coffees available, perhaps the real taste of luxury is knowing your cup is honest, humane, and free of this ugly truth. So here we are, staring at the truth we were never meant to see. From burgers hiding chemical cocktails to coffee born from animal suffering, every bite we trust too easily carries a story we'd rather ignore. But ignorance won't protect us, it only feeds the very system that's betraying us. You deserve better. You deserve to know what's on your plate before it harms you. If this opened your eyes, stay with us. Subscribe now, because the next truth we uncover might just change the way you eat forever and maybe even save your health.
Thanks so much for sticking with us to the very end. If you liked this video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe so you won't miss any of our daily updates. And now feel free to check out some of our latest and most popular videos showing up on your screen. Goodbye, and see you in the next one.